shall we?
Let's do it.
I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. This is This Week
in Recruiting.
It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter, Next Level D1. See his fine work at TexasFootball.com. And, of course, this is brought to you by our good chicken friends at Chicken Express. Chicken Express. Love those rolls. I got to be honest. I don't like giving you guys credit. You guys have turned me into roll.
Let's
Nice.
go.
That's
I've done
big,
the last
big
3
news.
times I've done the roll.
That's groundbreaking.
The last 3 times I've done the roll, and
They're so good.
and their biscuits are excellent. This is not a pox on their biscuits.
I think
The roll is the way to roll. I've seen the line.
The roll is the way to roll.
I'm a double roll guy.
Ooh, extra roll.
I always get the extra roll. I can't actually live without it when I go. I gotta have 2 rolls.
I can't live without it. It's like
My heart
you're just looking
cannot
at it, there's
go
only
on.
one roll. You're just like, is this it?
This is where it ends.
As you guys know, my roll energy was felt at the DCTF barbecue this year when I brought in 2 boxes of double box of rolls.
It was. I think
Yeah.
that's when the conversion started. I was like,
Really?
These rolls are pretty good.
They're just a little FYI. They're so good left over.
Oh yeah, like day after.
Like it's the best leftover
Okay,
bread.
reheated or not reheated?
I put them in the microwave for 9 seconds.
Every time I feel like I know what I'm talking about, Powers just stiff arms
he's
me
like,
into oblivion.
He's like, I've actually got an entire guidebook.
It goes 1
He's like,
second
"Here you
longer
go,
than
rookie."
it goes 1 second longer than a donut. Donuts go for 8
Okay, I have
seconds.
a lot of questions, but we
I
can.
need a chart. So we can recruiting with Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. We're going to start with our prospect on the rise. Our prospect on the rise, going to Fort Bend to talk to Mo City to talk about Fort Bend Ridge Point's senior defensive tackle DK Caloo, who is right on that edge of the DCTF Hot 100. He is presently committed to Baylor. He is a guy who's an interesting case because the tape is what we're seeing now is basically the only tape we have because he didn't have a junior season. Great bloodlines there. Indy Caloo, our buddy, this is his son, but this is a guy who is making up for lost time. I'd say that much.
Yeah, no doubt. And as I was looking for the prospect on the rise, there were a couple guys who picked up new offers this week, but this is one that really jumped out to me on tape. DK Caloo, I believe he was a DCTF Rising Top 25 guy as a freshman, suffered some injuries, had some setbacks, and now he's playing really strong as a senior, and I think that he'll climb his way back up into the DCTF Hot 101 because he's really solid as an overall athlete up front, but he's technique sound. He uses his hands really well. He has a array of moves that he likes to employ. He's not just like a one-trick bull rush pony. Mm-hmm. He can do a little bit of everything, and I think that he'll fit into that Dave Aranda defense so well. And I just like his upside. You know, he's 270 pounds right now, 280 pounds. He's going to play at over 300 in college, and he's 6'3". So, 6'2", 6'3". So he's got a little bit of everything that you're looking for. He made his commitment early, so I just wanted to shine a little spotlight on one of the targets for the Bears that I think we're going to be hearing a lot about in the Big 12.
Yeah, DK Caloo is a name to know there. A big frame there at the defensive tackle spot, and only going to get better simply because he's still getting reps. It's one of the things is like it's crazy to think that he still doesn't have a ton of varsity reps because of his injury in junior year, but he has come back in a big, big way. Let's go to our commit of the week. Our commit of the week, we're going to East Texas. We're going to go to Lobo Land to talk about the senior wide receiver, Jalen Hale. Perhaps you heard last week he pulled the trigger and committed to Alabama, choosing the Crimson Tide over Georgia and Texas as his final 3. We've got him as a 4-star prospect at number 9 overall. Another classic case of a guy he'd be a 5-star in a lot of other classes, but he's the real deal. I am convinced Jalen Hale pretty good.
Yeah, I really like Jalen Hale. Another guy who I can't think of another Longview player off the top of my head that started as a freshman for John King.
That's huge.
I'm sure there are. Maybe there are. I can't think of it.
Probably.
But he's
class that doesn't take long to call roll.
He's been the guy since he stepped on the field there. He's similar size, 6'1", 185 pounds. He's a guy who can kind of do everything at the wide receiver position. He can play outside in, got really good quickness, really good hands. he has a chance to be the number one wide receiver in any offense that he would have picked.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama, I would say, is probably, like they're the cream of the crop when it comes to recruiting. They kind of get their pick of who they want nationwide. And Hale has a chance to develop into that number one wide receiver position for the Crimson Tide, a spot that has been heavily drafted and now produces pretty good stats in the NFL. There isn't one – I can't look at Hale's game and say, here's a weakness, right? Here's something that he needs – to improve on.
Do you know what I appreciate about watching his tape is they obviously look, John King is not a dummy. Let's get the ball to the really good guy.
Right.
They get him the ball in a lot of different ways, deep shots, cross the middle, stuff like that. But when they catch him short and he's able to get his eyes upfield, that's when I think he's most. He turns into like a running back in the open field, basically.
I really like his ability to high point the football, and like his hands and concentration are really good too. Like I said, you're not going to look at his tape or watch him play in person and go, oh well, Jalen Hale needs to improve on this.
Pretty complete.
I won't pick a weakness because there isn't one that I know of.
He's pretty special, and Alabama's getting a special one in Jalen Hale, the wide receiver from Longview. It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers and XL Athlete here on Texas Football Today. Get involved with the conversation, #TF Today. Let's roll on to our underclassmen of the week. Speaking of wide receivers, let's go to Silsbee, talk about their junior wide receiver, Draylen Miller, who is, I got to be honest, I think he's making a case to being the best player in the state. He's been unbelievable to start the year. He's got Silsbee off to a 5-0 start. He was spectacular, unstoppable against West Orange Stark last week, and he's already one of the state's most highly offered prospects. And just turn on the tape, and it's easy to see why.
Yeah, and it really came out of the gate swinging strong this year against Vider. Where was Silsbee kind of in the preseason talk? Were they?
They were like a fringe. They were like a contender. They were like a team that's like we like, but we're not putting as the favorite in their region. Now, I think
that win over West Orange Stark,
it's huge.
Yeah, it's really big, and they've got. And by the way, this is only highlights from the West Orange Stark game. This seems like
2.5 minutes worth of them.
It's like a season highlight, and this ain't one of those where we're showing you all three angles. This is like only big plays from Draylen Miller during one game. You talked about run after the catch with Jalen Hale. Draylen Miller's 200 pounds. He's running over you if he wants to. Very strong, big-bodied type of wide receiver. They gave him some carries at running back this past week as well, and he'll line up in the backfield when they feel like they need him to. But if there's one guy who I feel like in the state is most instrumental to their team, I have to agree with you that I think it could be Draylen Miller.
He does everything. He does everything for them.
Dalton Brooks.
Yes.
I think Dalton Brooks and Draylen Miller are those two guys who are singularly the most important player to their state championship hopes and
Terry
their playoff
Bussey's
hopes.
Probably on that short list
too.
too.
Terry Bussey. I agree with you 100%.
But notice how those are 2A guys, and we're talking about 4A team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And look, they would, to get out of their region, they'd have to get through teams like Belleville and Cuero, who are off to great starts. They don't have a guy like Draylen Miller, because Draylen Miller he's a freak show, man. He's that dude. I maybe I'm getting colored because we had we were texting live. I watched a fair amount of the Silsbee and West Orange Shark game and the highlights that came after it. And he's unbelievable.
Well, guess what, Tep? I do rankings.
Yeah.
For Dave Campbell's Texas football recruiting rankings.
Yeah.
We have a top 3 right now in the 2024 class. It's Micah Hudson. And then we have after him Colin Simmons at Duncanville, and then Big Zena at Allen.
Yep.
I think Draylen Miller is right in line to maybe be that fourth player after. That's why there hasn't been a fourth player named.
Into the 5-star?
Well, I mean, in line to potentially be a 5-star Draylen Miller. I have to agree with you. What he's done this year has been remarkable, and I really don't. Again, another guy that doesn't have a lot of weaknesses to his game.
It's one of those things, and I don't know. And he's super well offered, and so I know that he's got
Stanford.
Everyone's offered him basically.
So he's smart.
And so I know in the recruiting circles, everyone's talking about him. This is a guy that I feel like if he played at Denton Ryan, we would never shut up about.
Yeah, there were people trying to talk trash on his highlights because they beat Vider in week 1. I was like, you know what? They got beat by Vider last year.
Yeah.
So
Vider's not a bad team. Anyway.
3-sport athlete too. So
Draylen Miller. Let's round it all out with our recruit of the week. Our recruit of the week is Willis Junior quarterback DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway is got commitment. He's got offers all over the place, but he's narrowed it down to 10. He's got plenty of time. He's narrowed it down to 10. The 10 offers are Baylor, A&M, Alabama, Arkansas, Clemson, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, and USC all making the cut. And so, yeah, there's 2 in-state there's A&M and Baylor. This is a DCTF 4-star guy in the class of 2024. And, yeah, pretty darn good. I know we saw him at was he at 7-on-7?
Yeah, he was.
He was at 7-on-7, and I remember thinking, like he looks like he was just built in a lab. Like,
yeah, he's a monster.
He looks like the modern quarterback in the sense of, like, he's got the size and the frame. I know he wasn't able to run, obviously, in 7-on-7, but the arm is does everything you need to do. This kid's special. Very
strong arm. Texas A&M is somebody I'm watching pretty closely in state as it relates to his recruitment. They've done a pretty good job with him. As a matter of fact, they had Lagway and Novosad on campus the day after 7-on-7 was over. Austin Novosad was another guy that Texas A&M offered. So but it's a little early, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's so early in this recruitment. There are a lot of heavy hitters on that list. Alabama, Clemson has done a tremendous job with developing quarterbacks, and the schools that he's taken visits to so far this fall are all SEC schools: LSU, Florida, and Texas A&M. So maybe that's something to really keep a close eye on as we, continue to break down this recruitment. And he's going to be embroiled in what I think is going to be a very tough race in the class of 2024. Who is that number one quarterback in the class of 2024? You have some pretty strong candidates right now with DJ Lagway, Michael Hawkins at Allen, Mabry Matower at the Woodlands. There are a lot of really good quarterbacks in that class. I think we're going to have a little bit of a bounce back year in 2024 as it relates to depth at the quarterback position, but at the top, who's going to end up being that number one guy? It may not be settled until we're talking playoffs again, or DCTF Rising Magazine time again next year. This may continue, and Lagway's definitely going to be in that race.
Special kid there is DJ Lagway. Keep an eye on him, the quarterback at Willis. Also keep an eye on Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScalp. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter, Next Level D1C. His fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. Stick around. We have more to talk about.
Okay.